Being introduced to real horror through this project is portrayed as landing in capable hands, with the script's opening page proving immediately gripping. The idea of turning sports into an entire identity is cited as the hook, and the project is called a movie that should not exist, exactly the kind of thing this production company is drawn to, something culturally sacred and not meant to be touched, with the challenge lying in crossing that boundary in a way that brings everyone along. A pairing of horror and sports emerges as a compelling promise, along with certainty about exactly how the film should be handled. The collision of professional sports and horror sets up where things get interesting, contrasting a beloved American pastime with the darker side of the sport and the extreme sacrifices made with both body and mind. That combination captures the true essence of horror, with a deliberate lean into psycho-horror, since body horror is said to be inherent to American football at the highest level. A father points to a moment on television, calling it what real men do and characterizing it as making sacrifices. The story turns on the question of what it takes to be the greatest of all time and what one is willing to sacrifice to achieve it. Getting the body right stands out as the hardest part of preparation, arriving on set with less than ideal abs and diving fully into training before even finishing contract negotiations. Dropping 27 pounds was necessary after developing a belly and noticeably heavy chest tissue, heavy enough to prompt comparisons to why some women choose reduction surgery. The physical transformation started from the ground up, with workouts 5 to 7 days a week, 4 meals a day, a minimum of 200 grams of protein, no carbs, and an entirely organic diet. An unfamiliar new world summed up simply as movie magic. Roughly 5 to 7 different trainers were involved, beginning with a trainer who brought the weight down. That trainer explains being brought in early to get the cast camera ready, requiring both a reduction in body fat and an increase in muscle so the actors could look the part on screen. The same trainer also introduced meditation and stillness, even converting a back house into a dedicated meditation space. The physique alone proves insufficient without a solid, sound mind behind it, making meditation and a love of discipline essential companions to physical training. Football-specific trainers joined the effort as well, including a stint at a professional quarterback coach's football camp, which left an elbow sore from throwing. Getting in shape and eating healthy are things many people can help with, but the specific, nuanced demands of these particular roles called for investment in believability beyond ordinary fitness coaching. Each quarterback's throwing motion functions as a personal signature, with part of the training focused on correcting mechanics and the other part on capturing subtler details, facial expression at release, the retreat from the pocket, and what happens with the offhand, all contributing to a character-specific throwing style. One actor is noted for not having touched a football until senior year of high school, yet within a single season went on to play for a major college program, labeled a freak athlete. Audiences have no patience for someone merely pretending to know how to play quarterback, and the discipline and constant drive to improve shown by this actor draw praise as incredible. Extensive drilling and game tape study followed, with both lead actors placing themselves fully in the mindset of a quarterback, grasping not just the physical stamina and strength required, but also the strategic and mental dimensions of the position. A quarterback is likened to the captain of a ship, calling plays under pressure and deciding who gets the ball in crunch time. Quarterbacks rank among the most gifted people for the way their minds operate under stress, though throwing like the greatest of all time poses an entirely different challenge. Both leads come across as extremely serious and dedicated to their craft, yet also as goofballs off camera, illustrated by a joking exchange about a 25-year-old arm versus a 51-year-old one that isn't supposed to throw anything at all. Enjoyment is taken in playfully annoying a co-star, compared to a young golden retriever pestering with questions about what the other person is doing. Pushing each other to unexpected heights gets credit for elevating the work, and showing up fully for the production, for oneself, and for the character feels like a good thing, with every look in the mirror reflecting the effort put in. A brief exchange about being certain of a decision leads into deeper reflection on toxic masculinity and the extremes men will go to in order to outdo one another. Interest is also expressed in rituals and in the relentlessness of a character willing to endure extraordinary hardship. A trainee witnesses strange events throughout the process, though never anything so extreme as to break the illusion that this is simply how things are done, comparable to typical hazing. Constant vigilance about who can be trusted, and when that trust begins to shift, marks part of the psychological tension, along with a whispered warning that it's going to be a long week. One character's pursuit of greatness stems, it is argued, from pure intent, and rare praise is given to a single performance capturing both childlike innocence and full-grown man presence at once, attributed to natural, unteachable soulfulness and sensitivity that make it impossible to look away. Pairing the two leads together suggested an instant sense of forthcoming magic, illustrated by a tense on-field exchange about wanting to be there and being yelled at, followed by praise for one performance being especially strong in the film. Occasional intensity gets acknowledged as a personal trait, alongside praise for this casting as a favorite, citing a transformative performance full of menace, including a chilling line about a woman almost killed the night before, delivered with charisma drawn from a background in comedy and joked about as the secret to being good at the job. A preference for encouraging improvisation comes through, keeping the camera rolling and throwing unscripted material at the actor. Trusting the director's instructions on set consistently produces striking, unusual results, with full commitment to a scene surprising everyone present, illustrated by an intense demand to answer with conviction and declare wanting something, followed by a lighthearted farewell kiss and a performance summed up as pure mischief. Whether behavior on set reflects deliberate strategy or genuine unpredictability remains an open question. The collaboration between the two leads counts as a blessing, framed as competitors within the story who nonetheless share real brotherhood, allowing one to be pushed further within a scene, including a heated exchange about what one is willing to sacrifice, answered simply with everything. Breathless intensity gives way to a declaration that whoever carries this fire inside is the greatest of all time. The unfair advantage behind such greatness comes into question, with a suggestion that something darker and more unsettling may explain why certain people are able to rise to the very top. Pursuing greatness ties directly to making sacrifices, prompting the unsettling question of how much of oneself can be given up before becoming unrecognizable, a genuinely terrifying idea that stands as the central cost of greatness theme of the film. Missing out on much of life in pursuit of greatness gets acknowledged, leading to the closing question of whether it is truly worth it, which is met with a hopeful affirmation and a final declaration of wanting to be the greatest of all time. When the material was read, it was instantly interesting, and it felt like a no-brainer. A meeting with Monkey Paw took place while they had a script called GOAT at the time. The project had arrived a few years earlier, written by Skip Bronke and Zach Akers, and it felt serendipitous since playing football meant that world was already familiar. The project comes across as a mini boot camp focused purely on football, one that spoke to the sacrifice required to become great at something. There is something deeply horrific about the idea and feeling of having to achieve greatness. It was hard to legitimately point to another mashup with the same tone, so the reaction was simply enthusiastic. The creative opportunities felt endless. For Monkey Paw, the goal is always to say something no one else has said yet, and to shine a light on things right in front of everyone's faces by using a genre and horror lens. This qualifies as a perfect Monkey Paw film because of the mischief built into the idea alone. Looking at the world of professional sports uncovers so much production put into the joy of it, and this film hints at something darker in the ceremony surrounding it. The movie manages to appeal to a sports fan while also indicting that same love of sports fandom. In contemporary culture, the word hymn refers to the one everyone is talking about, and it is very much present in hip-hop and sports, though it is also directly related to religion and Jesus. Looking at the title Hymn through the lens of horror creates a great opportunity to evoke a feeling everyone is thinking about but no one would dare say out loud, functioning almost like a code word for the devil. The production designer, Jordan Ferrer, devoured this project, and what emerged reads as phenomenal, taking the world of the film to a whole other level. Nothing like this has been seen in a sports movie before, and the whole production carries great taste. Graphics and emblems drawing on pagan symbology are woven into the recovery room, with insignias marking each area, almost like stations of recovery tied to occult symbology and an esoteric sense of what is being conjured there. The room was designed to feel womb-like, with an ice bath serving as its centerpiece, alongside a hot tub meant to evoke a natural spring and a fountain of youth. A rose gold inlay on the floor represents the Philosopher's Stone, a symbol at the heart of alchemy tied to divine perfection and the hunt for everlasting life, and symbolism is hidden throughout the set. All the framing and context of the movie draw parallels across many different mediums, weaving in a great deal of spiritual and religious imagery. That religious iconography sits stylistically inside the palette, occupying the overlap of sports and horror. Sports themselves are full of ritual, raising the question of how different a church really is from a stadium, or chanting for a favorite team from singing a hymn. The movie tries to collapse those two ideas into one. Football is descended from European soccer, which itself descends from Shrovetide, an old pagan fertility festival, pointing to mythological and spiritual roots for these sports. The word scapegoat is a biblical reference involving two goats, where one is sent into the wilderness carrying the sins of the people. Being the quarterback means holding it all, with sacrifice treated as inevitable. What happened to Cameron's father comes out in a very intimate, confessional way. The camera then pulls wide to place Cameron in a Last Supper-type setting, with reporters seated along one side of the table listening and recording as tears roll down his face, and someone casually lint rolls his shoulder, a moment that reads as deeply depressing. Attempting a Last Supper composition is bold, yet the shot lands with the feeling of viewing a painting, forcing a juxtaposition of the classical with the contemporary that lends the scene a kind of divinity, mirroring how the moment feels to athletes and to fans when a game is on the line for their favorite team. There is also an adjacency to Genesis and the structure of 7 days, framing the story as the making, or in this case the rebuilding, of something within a fixed period of time. The direction and cinematography together crafted a beautiful film, with every shot considered gorgeous. A fondness for anamorphic lensing shaped the intent to create images that feel slightly distorted at times, mirroring how the world grows increasingly distorted as the compound stay continues and the central mindset begins to spiral. A good mixture of camera tools was used, including a custom rig called the Boomerang rig built by the Key Grip that allowed the camera to be sent out as if seeing from the point of view of the football itself. A helmet-mounted camera setup, nicknamed the Doggy Cam, allowed full physicality to be captured in usable shots by placing a football helmet over the lens to simulate a player's point of view. Naming the lead character Cam, while also referring to a helmet cam, proved extremely confusing on set, with references to helmet cam sometimes met with confused looks. At a certain point, the tone shifts toward treating sports itself as horror. The visual language of X-rays proved critical to the inciting incident of the film, prompting the idea to periodically return to that imagery throughout. A custom rig, combining an Alexa 35 with a military-grade thermal camera, was created to add intensity to action sequences, forcing the audience to feel what it is like to go through rehab and injury. The visual effects team proposed adding a CG skeleton and CG brain to enhance moments of impact, so the footage would feel like witnessing a living X-ray. The thermal camera does not register reflective or transparent material, only reading the temperature of the form itself, which led to experiments like using a blow dryer to heat a helmet or placing a performer in cold water or ice to achieve a suitably dark effect. The indoor arena was essentially a large tent that could bear almost no weight, creating a challenge to light an area roughly 200 yards across without hanging a traditional grid. The Key Grip's idea to use airplane cables allowed a lightweight design built with Hyperion tubes, which looked striking while remaining easy to support. Building the training field was a major undertaking, and the world was deliberately rendered in grays and neutral tones so that as the story moves deeper, bolder color choices representing states like fury or being power-hungry would stand out. There was discussion of hitting the audience over the head with a commercial football aesthetic before shifting into a world of brutalist architecture upon meeting an idol, creating a sense of being completely a fish out of water. The Horn Fanatic character embodies the unexpected things that arise in pursuit of a goal, heightened into an exaggerated version of a crazed fan, reflecting the belief that the madness driven by fans fuels why athletes put their bodies on the line. Looking at the passion in someone's eyes captures exactly what that dedication requires, echoing a broader love of sports paired with the deeper question of why people line up and pretend to go to war, and how the strangest part of it all is that it stays fun. While on set at the football field, walking into the locker room revealed a whiteboard covered in quotes from Genesis, reinforcing a guiding philosophy summed up as God, family, football. A greeting is exchanged. A younger figure is introduced as the little brother taken under the wing, called over to approach, with a promise that something new will be taught every day. The methods used come across as unorthodox and at times intense. A willingness to endure just about anything is required to move forward. Going into the process, it was understood that the most divisive and upsetting sequence would involve a machine built to launch footballs. A question is raised about who the people present are, met with an explanation that this is merely an opportunity to play catch. What follows amounts to a drill common in football, a simple exercise built around timing and field position, requiring the eyes to be closed while a receiver moves either left or right, with the entire sequence expected to unfold within 2 seconds by professional standard. A remark about being too slow marks a shift towards something more unsettling. A volunteer is called for, and one steps forward. Reflection turns to a fascination found in horror films with the pathos of inanimate objects and how such objects are used against their intended purpose, as the football launching machine is positioned directly in front of someone designated as the sacrificial figure of the drill, firing footballs straight into the face. Additional methods enter the mix to intensify the twisted experience, operating within a cult-like environment where compliance with any demand becomes the norm in pursuit of approval. Allowing the ball to make contact with the face becomes a demonstration of loyalty, followed by visible confusion about what is unfolding. Trust is placed in the belief that best interests are being protected, though doubt begins to take hold from that point onward. Confusion persists as further instructions and mechanical sounds continue. Filming multiple stages of impact stands out as an enjoyable process, with returns to makeup between takes to apply the effect of a broken nose using a flattening prosthetic alongside a tube run along the arm to produce gushing blood. A repeated call to intensify the effect comes with amusement. A second hit reveals a cut lip achieved through practical effects. A split lip and missing tooth are created using a dental veneer fitted with a blacked-out tooth cap. Another hit follows amid encouragement from nearby. A third impact produces a cheek injury, a fully swollen eye, and a gash through the eyebrow, all strikingly brutal. During the sound mix, a request is made to exaggerate the harshness of the impact sounds, with a deliberately mistimed snap added to unsettle the listener. Frustration surfaces over a perceived lack of commitment to the moment. The scene's geography is designed to balance conflict and emotion, weighing the pressure of dwindling time, the choice of play, and the intended target, all while composure must be maintained. A demand follows for receivers capable of making the catch. Frustration from the drill gets redirected toward the receivers, escalating into a heated exchange of insults. The moment stands as a valuable opportunity for a teachable lesson. A designation as quarterback is affirmed, with both glory and defeat resting entirely on that role. The position is likened to that of a ship's captain, where a poor throw or an incorrect call falls squarely on individual responsibility. A sharp demand is issued to get everything together, followed by a brief sound effect and a cut called by the crew amid laughter and background chatter. A snap count restarts the play. This moment amounts to a singular opportunity to demonstrate capability, leaving little room to defend the character being portrayed. A call goes out to bring assistance for an injured participant. The culmination of the scene supplies the element that makes it feel unhinged, and although the experience itself was genuinely real, the intent behind it remained deliberately unclear. A question about being caught off guard is met with hesitant acknowledgement. In such circumstances, following the group is presented as the only viable option when career and everything else are on the line. Acknowledgement of having been deceived is met with laughter. This works as a microcosm of what it means to exist in the quarterback role, demanding an impenetrable mentality, with a price attached to greatness and a lingering question about what one is willing to sacrifice. Considerable effort went into sustaining a tone that grew progressively darker throughout production, as the central journey continued to descend and intensify, and each scene was pushed to surpass the last in terms of violence and horror. The gladiator fight to the death is survived, and the victor is presented before the team's owners. A ritual then takes place to prepare him to become the new GOAT, resembling a Freemason or Illuminati ceremony involving pig masks, a play on the idea of pigskin and a symbol of humility before a great warrior wearing the animal's drooping mask. The third verse of the Star-Spangled Banner is recited, a passage largely unfamiliar to those involved, building to the closing lines about triumph waving over the land of the free and the home of the brave. Appreciation is expressed for how the anthem begins already in progress, much like arriving at a game after it has started, underscoring the tradition of honoring it before play begins. The scene's poetic quality stands out, with sunshine and a cheering crowd, even as the gathering turns out to be an aggressive, cutthroat shadow of society disguised as celebration. A contract is signed in exchange for a gift. From the owner's perspective, this represents only an illusion of choice, since no one would refuse the opportunity to become the greatest of all time, with fame and fortune guaranteed. A memory surfaces of a father's excitement whenever a touchdown was scored, hinting that part of the reaction in this moment stems from imagining how proud that father would have been. The raw emotion captured during the revelation laughing and crying at once counts as a pivotal moment in the film. No moment of rest is ever permitted for the central character, and there was never an intention to allow any pause. As the story builds toward a critical decision, a deep breath is taken, the camera pushes in, and a simple refusal follows. The intensity is set to climb even further, despite already reaching extreme levels. By this point, the film has established that anything can happen, with tension and uncertainty over what is real before the action resumes. A violent confrontation unfolds. It becomes clear that awareness exists of how the fate of one character will shift as another rises to become the GOAT, creating a double-edged situation for her. The take is brought to a close, met with amusement at how extreme the sequence felt. The tone proved difficult to navigate, blending the rawness of a UFC-style match with slasher and samurai horror influences before descending fully into chaos. A dark comedic, abject horror sensibility runs through the sequence, guided by the idea that the more extreme the moment, the more cathartic it would feel. The camera crew works in ponchos, crawling across the field in extreme heat while continually doused in blood. A lesson learned from a father emphasized that violence is rewarded within this world, casting sacrifice as what real men do. Even though the lesson carries troubling implications, a willingness emerges to risk everything if it means bringing an end to the cult driving these events. The overall sound of the film comes across as radical. An early meeting took place with the composer, since music was known to be a major part of the project. The film is remarkably musical, almost wall-to-wall in score, offering a rare opportunity for a composer's work to be woven directly into the fabric of the film. Frequent exchanges of ideas occurred through text messages, imagining a sound world shaped by ongoing conversations. Attention was also given to the intergenerational nature of the story, contrasting a young quarterback with an aging one, with an intention for that dynamic to come through in the music. The score carries a mysterious quality, yet is touched by an over-the-top, slightly sinister edge that makes it exciting. Conversation also centered on the idea of this being a childhood dream, the sound of achieving it, and the fragility inherent in holding on to a dream, which led to the concept of music boxes. The first composition written was the music box theme, later developed through different techniques so it could be repurposed and molded into new shapes. A figure who is intimidating and physically massive, yet soulful and sensitive underneath, comes through as a duality treated as part of the story, prompting questions about how it might be subverted. Reflection turns to what it means to hold power, how power can corrupt a dream, and what significance remains once that dream is finally achieved. Involvement in scoring extended beyond conventional composition into producing many of the bespoke needle drops featured throughout the movie. An idea emerged to sample the score itself and transform it into a trap beat or something more modern, with artists sampling elements of the original score. Hearing a needle drop that feels cut from the same musical cloth as the score qualifies as a uniquely satisfying experience. Everything coalesces naturally, feeling right without much deliberation, with creative opportunities that feel endless. The result is likened to a living, amorphous, breathing entity that takes on a life of its own. The overall tone leans tonal and droning, with deliberate effort made to sit in a mood that grows progressively darker, leading into the ending sequence and culminating in one long musical cue spanning the final 20 minutes. A question is posed about what exactly is being done. The killing spree at the film's conclusion presents a difficult balance to strike, given how fantastical and absurd the scene is. A Celeste melody is layered with a massive trap beat, then topped with a children's choir and a disco beat, before being run through 5 different distortion units, a result seen afterward as either the best or the worst thing ever created. Effort is directed toward finding a juxtaposition within the world of professional football that feels elevated, haunting, religious, elegiac, and triumphant all at once. A sharp contrast between sweet, angelic voices and chaotic violence gets credit for making the film feel especially dynamic. The ability to bend genres so freely comes from being empowered by a talented team and a strong director. A sense of being lost for words is expressed, along with amazement at the talent gathered in the room. Ideas that begin as small sketches in a studio don't truly come alive until reaching the wider team, with deep gratitude expressed for what everyone contributed, and the feeling described is overwhelming. Thanks are returned in kind. The overall experience ranks as the most fun ever had writing for any project.